Oh, I just got an oxytocin hit.
Oh, you could have shown it on camera. That's very apt since we're talking about oxytocin and some other neurotransmitters today. Today's episode is 10 ways that we can boost our feel-good brain chemicals without using drugs or that
Introduced
kind of stuff.
elements.
Yes, we can do it healthily and naturally.
Yes.
So before we get into that, Nick, I have something very important to tell you. I've been meaning to tell you the last...
There goes my oxytocin.
By oxytocin. And I've been meaning to tell you the last couple of weeks, but I keep forgetting. My irrational phobia of spiders seems to have disappeared.
Abated
after decades of it being there.
I like it. Has this been a conscious thing, or
it just? Well, I said to you before when we've spoken about this, my arachnophobia, because I would literally I become like, I don't know what I become. I become this thing around a big spider that's not. It's definitely not man. But anyway, and I said to you, I've worked years ago. I did some work around it. Like I really wanted to just dive into my subconscious and work on it. And I think maybe, sometimes the subconscious, just things take time to just click, and all of a sudden they just click into gear, right? Because what happened, and there was these events from my past where I don't know if I was told this story, but I went back to a memory when I was doing this work years ago when I was young, and there was a huntsman in the backyard. And I was like a little bit scared as a kid. I don't know how old I was, very young though, but I was a bit scared as a kid because a big huntsman when you're a kid looks massive, And so I called Mum, and Mum comes out to the backyard, and Mum's like, "Oh, it's just a spider, don't worry about it." And she got a stick and went to either poke it or move the spider. But as soon as she did it, the spider started crawling up the stick, and she freaked out and threw the stick right at me unintentionally. So I've got this huntsman like this coming at young Ryan, like it looked like a giant bloody massive animal coming at me. Anyway,
I'm not a therapist, but hang on, yes I am. So I wonder whether that would have been the initial sensitizing events that created the.
And that's the thing. I worked on that, and there was another event when I went to get into my mum's car, and there was one on the back seat. And it's so funny because our memory is very subjective; it's not real. Yeah. But in my mind, it looked like the huntsman took up the entire back seat. Like this thing was.
Is that blowing things out of proportion?
100%. Anyway, what happened? And this has still been. We've spoken about this. That I have this irrational fear, and so we moved to Chiang Mai for 2 months, and we were in a very jungly area. And it was kind of, my irrational fear was coming out, even though I never saw a spider. I'm like, oh, we're in a jungly area. This is this house is kind of built of wood and everything. I'm going to see fucking spiders here. And I was kind of preparing myself for it, and it never happened.
Can you hear how distorted your mind was?
Yes. This has been my big phobia my whole life, Nick. Anyway, we spent 2 months in Chiang Mai. I never see a spider. We come back to Samui. Anyway, at this new place we're staying at, I open up the curtains, and there's how you have your block out curtains, and there's like those curtains behind that you can still see through, but they shield a bit of the light.
Yeah.
And
the sheer curtains.
Yeah. And I think Mel saw it. She opened the curtains and she's like, "Oh, babe, there's a big fucking spider on the curtains," kind of thing. And so she took Tommy out of the room, and I'm like, "Oh, I'll deal with it." But I was kind of a little bit conscious, and I'm like, I haven't got this same fear reaction. Anyway, I go in, I kind of knock it off the curtains a bit and just hit it with a shoe and that. And then I came out and I'm like, "Oh, it's taken care of." And Mel goes, "What?" I didn't hear any screaming. I didn't hear any yelling. I didn't hear you yelling at the spider, calling it a demon and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's really weird. And then like a week later, I wake up in the morning, I'm half asleep, and I go to step from my bedroom into the ensuite, and it's kind of dark, and I step over something, and I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" Another giant fucking huntsman thing. I nearly stepped on it. And once again, I'm like, "Oh." And I just went and grabbed like a book or something and whacked it and put it outside. And I'm like, what is going on with me? Like, I'm not getting this fear response. And then the final one, And this is even crazier. I get up might have been this week, and I come into this exact room that I'm in. But once again, when I get up, it's still dark, and I can see something on the wall. And this is a big spider, like fucking big as big or bigger than my hand. And so I think I see it, and I turn on the light, and yeah, it is. And so I looked at it, and it started to move, and it was kind of moving towards the window and the door. And what I've done, I've opened all the curtains in the door, and I've ushered it outside. I didn't even kill it. And I let it go back outside, and then went, all right, see you later. And I'm just sitting here, and it's just such a foreign experience for me, because I'm like, normally if I see like on the wall a spider, my whole heart is like jumping out of my chest, and I'm freaking out.
Don't you? Can I intervene as a therapist here?
Intervene, Nick.
Can I put my therapist hat on and analyze you for a minute?
Please analyze me. So
we have a tool in here, and it's in the past I ... but now I ... So you just said the word normally. Normally I would, but you're trying to create a separation between the version of you that had a phobia and the version of you that now has a liberated mind because it doesn't have an irrational belief that's getting triggered by external stimulus. Yeah, so that was a great example where you could have said, in the past, I would have blah, 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 but now I just ushered it out and acted very humanely for another living creature and lived in harmony with my natural environment.
It was such a weird thing. I remember I let it open the door, and I'm like, I was even talking to it going, go on, mate, you can go outside. Like, I can see that's what you want to do. And it crawled up under a corner of the awning here. And then as I shut the door and locked it, I really had to look at myself in the mirror. And I was like, who am I? Who is this man? What have I become?
So did you because you jumped straight back into your story then. So everything I said was not acknowledged.
No, but it's gone. It's gone. Like, I feel like it's gone.
No. So, but the point of what I said was, can you go back and reframe it and say, in the past I would have, but now I ...
In the past, I would have gone into just a massive fear reaction, and my whole body would have started to panic, and I would have needed it to die because I couldn't handle the fact that there was a huntsman out there. Do you know what happened though? Sorry, this is irrational thinking again, but I still couldn't help myself as I ushered it outside and went like, "Be free, you know, God's creation, you little creature." And then just before I shut the door, I looked at it and just went, "Stay away from my fucking family as well." And then I shut the door.
I'm compassionate, but I have my limits.
So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you, Nick. It's really interesting because that's something that I've had for 30 years of my life. And it's very, liberating was the word that you used. I feel very, very liberated You
have a liberated mind, which means it's free of those distortions. It's not, you're not looking at reality through a distorted lens. You're living in the reality of what is, and the reality of what was that man steps over spider. I'm not in danger. It doesn't have a semi-automatic pistol hiding in its eighth leg. It doesn't, it's not launching at my face and coming out with gnashing teeth. It's just man steps over spider.
Yeah, and it's very liberating. It's like with any fears that we have, it's not just, and like what I was saying, like when I was in Chiang Mai, so whatever we're really afraid of, that tends to rule our life, because all of a sudden I'm in Chiang Mai and there's not a spider present, yet I'm thinking about there being a spider present. So not only are the moments that spiders are around ruining my life, the moments that they aren't, but I think that they might be ruining my life.
They're not quite ruining your life.
I like to be dramatic, Nick.
That's a bit inflated as well, Ryan.
No, but it is. But it is, because in that moment that I'm like,
they weren't ruining your life. They were having an impact on your day. They weren't ruining your life.
To me, it is. If I'm sitting there,
you have a good life.
I have a very good life. In the jungle, if I'm sitting
there, and the spider's ruining your good life, is it?
No, I'm ruining my life.
You're ruining.
I am. Because instead of sitting in the jungle in this beautiful house that was handmade out of wood and going, wow, this place is fantastic, I'm going, fuck, is there going to be a spider in here? So my irrational fear of spiders in those moments were ruining my life. And now, right, Nick, I can say that I'm free.
Well, congratulations to you, sir. I'm very proud of you and the work that you've done.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. I feel like I didn't do anything. It just happened.
Well, I think you have, because we've been talking about this. So I think vicariously through us talking about it from time, I think we've planted some seeds. It's probably added to the work that you did years ago, but I reckon there's an element of, therapeutic intervention being weaved somehow through all of our discussions.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And
So can I add another suggestion?
Yes.
If and when, I'm not going to jump to a conclusion and say you will encounter another spider, but if and when you see another spider, maybe give it a name and start talking to it. So
Right.
take it to the next level.
I haven't given them. I used to call them the devil's creature.
Yeah, maybe call it Jeff.
Jeff.
Yep. Jeff.
Yep.
Hey Jeff, what are you up to? And Jeff's like, and then you have to answer on Jeff's behalf, and you go, "Oh, morning, Ryan. I'm just heading from here over to that wall over there. I'm just gonna hang out over there and see if there's any flies."
All right. I'll do the name.
Cool.
I'll do the name because I was definitely doing the talking. The one that asked it outside, I'm like, "Did you want to go outside, mate? It looks like you're trying to get outside." All right, let me try and open these curtains for you.
But did you answer on his behalf as well?
No. I've got to.
That's.
I'm going to add the name and I'm going to answer on his or her behalf.
His or her behalf.
Yeah.
And that'd be great. So, and congratulations as well, because I had a phobia of Ryan's stories, and gradually that is going away because they're actually improving. I think there was a decent one last episode. And
last episode I told your story, but we weren't recording yet. And you're like, you should have recorded that because you finally told a fucking story that wasn't boring as hell.
That's right. I remember that.
All right. Well, me and Nick are both getting over our
keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work.
Good job.
Thanks, mate.
And it's just giving both of us these really feel-good chemicals in our brain, isn't it?
It is. Lovely segue, Nick. So let's talk about some of the feel-good chemicals in our brain, because when we start to engage in activities as human beings compulsively, when we feel urges to do things, and for some people that can be alcohol, drugs, it can be gambling, shopping, sex, it can be smoking. It can be even, if it gets to 9 p.m. and I have this impulse, I need to go and buy a tub of ice cream from the shop, and I sit there and eat the whole bucket of ice cream. What we're doing is we're not so much craving the thing outside of us, but we're craving these feel-good brain chemicals that are happening inside of us. And the thing is, Dr. Joe Dispenza says that the greatest pharmacist in the world is our own brain. And I love that because he talks a lot about the placebo effect. And he's actually written a whole book called You Are the Placebo, which is so interesting. And, when it comes to the medical industry, about 30% of healings or improvements in health are attributed to the placebo effect, which means what? It means that in a study, someone's been given something that isn't the actual medicine to help with their condition, yet because they think it is, their brain produces the exact set of chemicals that mimic what would be made in a pharmacy and goes throughout their body. It's actually just quite incredible. I'll
put that down to being suggestible, because, if you tell someone, "Hey, you're okay," and they're open-minded and they're suggestible, like with hypnotherapy, it's just all about suggestions, and that's how people on a stage can roar like a lion every time they have a drink of alcohol. It's because the suggestion was implanted in their subconscious mind. So if we, but the subconscious mind with that one in particular will after a while go, "Oh, hang on, I'm not a lion. I don't have paws or a mane," and blah, blah, blah. So it'll understand that it's irrational. But one like a suggestion like, "Hey, you're actually okay," it can take hold, it can take effect. So the placebo is very powerful, I think.
It's so powerful, and it just goes to prove that we can just internally and through different things do these suggestions, but also things we're going to go through today, this list of 10, we can start to, in a healthy way, start to improve these brain chemicals. So let's talk about what they are. There's many different neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters, the actual name for a brain chemical, we'll call it. They're not just located in the brain, they're located all throughout our body, but they're generally made a lot in the brain. So there's more than these four. We'll call these the famous four, even though there is more. We're talking about dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. And you can put opiates in the endorphins category as well, because they're a type of endorphin. So dopamine is our chemical for reward and motivation. Dopamine's what, gets us moving, basically. If you knock the dopamine receptors out of rats, then they will just sit there until they die. Even if you put food right in front of them, they'll just sit there and starve to death, because there's literally no motivation in their system to do anything, and they will just die. So dopamine's what gets us moving, gets us going. Serotonin is involved with our mood, also our sleep and our sexual desire. Oxytocin is the chemical for love and bonding. So oxytocin is a very important chemical, especially when mothers are bringing babies into the world, through breastfeeding and those kind of means, massive amounts of oxytocin. They actually give, and this happened to Melissa, to help induce birth. If things are going slowly, they inject the mother with oxytocin to help the birthing process start to take hold. So oxytocin is that connection and bonding.
Is that where they suggest, skin-on-skin contact with a mother and a child? And it's, I imagine, just thought just popped in my head then, skin-on-skin contact as well in an adult relationship, in the boudoir, perhaps.
Exactly.
Hopping on the good foot and doing the bad thing. That's skin-on-skin contact.
That's skin-on-skin contact. That is what it's all. That's what oxytocin is all about: love, bonding, connection. And the last one's the endorphins or opiates, which are pain relief. And once again, if we think about a baby as well, the baby being held by the mother, not just oxytocin, but also opiate, starts to get released into the system, and those receptors start to form. And that's why we find, me working in the addiction space, you'll find a lot of people who had that lack of connection, whether the mother wasn't present or wasn't emotionally present, find themselves using heroin later in life because they're trying to find that opiate hit that they never got as a child. But that's probably a topic for another podcast.
Where would you put adrenaline?
So adrenaline and cortisol, I wouldn't call them. They're not feel good, chemicals. They're good in short bursts. They mobilize us into action. But I think these four are the ones that we're chasing when we're looking at external means coming out. So adrenaline and cortisol. Produced in the adrenal glands, which are in the back, sort of just above the kidneys, I believe. So that they're more, we find ourselves more in stress because adrenaline and cortisol are turned on as a society and not turned off. We are designed to release them in short bursts. That's why people do things like, cold therapy and that kind of jazz to give them short bursts of adrenaline and cortisol, but we're not chasing them on a long-term basis, in my opinion.
And we've spoken about how we're not addicted to external things, we're addicted to dopamine. Yeah, so that's that. We're addicted to feeling good. We want that quick fix, that little, it's like a hit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And me being a former methamphetamine addict, it releases 10 times more dopamine in the brain than the next highest drug, which is cocaine. So basically then, everything seems important and everything is a good idea and you have motivation, even if what you're doing is fucking ridiculous. So it's this, but on a more subtle level, this is what people are chasing. So this is what social media does. The whole reason that, notifications.
And advertising.
That's right. It's all to stimulate these dopamine receptors in the brain, which creates a society which we live in now, which is very much based around immediate gratification. Yeah, it's like, what's that next thing I can do, take, experience that's going to give me that hit of dopamine in the brain? But once again, we're looking for the hit up here as opposed to the actual thing itself. So what happens when we're lacking in a lot of these neurotransmitters, we go searching for them. If I have low levels of dopamine in my brain, I'm going to search for them. And like I said with the opiates, if we have low level of opiate receptors in the brain, we're going to search for it through external means. So we're going to talk about some natural ways that we can start to bring about these neurotransmitters, which have been shown by science. And they might seem like really basic things, and they are, but if we start to incorporate these into our day-to-day life, then we can start to naturally boost these transmitters, which means we're going to stop searching externally through, these vices that we start to use, like, the drugs, alcohol, all the stuff that we explained. Like, gambling was a good one. You sort of, after I said it, mentioned, because But if you take fMRI brain scans of someone gambling, it looks exactly the same as someone taking a drug. Yet gambling, I'm not ingesting anything, but my brain is producing those same chemicals that are going on as a drug. And then we keep wanting that hit and that hit and that hit. And that's why the gambling addict, it's not even about winning money. Because I've worked with so many gambling addicts, and they pretty much say, it doesn't matter how much I win, I'll just keep going until I've got no money.
I want the next win. Yeah, well, even if they win, $2,000 in one spin or whatever, they won't just take that and be grateful for that and go, oh, cool, I've got $2,000. They'll be like, I want more, I want more, I want more.
Yeah, never ends.
I've got a good photo for the graphic for this podcast.
Hugging a tree. Beautiful. Yep. I'm gonna put that on the thumbnail because that's one of the 10 points. That's a bloody big tree, by the way. My lord.
So Em and I went down to Tarra Valley in Gippsland and went to the Tarra National Park.
Yep.
And Em loves walking, but she loves power walking, and so she had a couple of tracks that she wanted to do, and she wanted to.
Were you guys like Cal and Kath with your Leica and your little weights, power walking, sticking your bum out? No.
Nope.
Okay, I just had a visual. It was really funny. Continue.
No. Thanks. We were just like Nick and them. And I've got long legs. She's got short legs. And she wanted to do this 10K power walk. And, obviously I got my knee injury from the army, so I've got to be mindful of what I do and the distance I go and whatnot. And she took off and I started, they had these signs everywhere, like teaching you about the rainforest and the plants and whatever. And not really consciously, maybe more subconsciously, I kept pulling her back and say, hey, Em, come and read this and come and read this. And then, oh, did you touch that? And all of a sudden she came back and slowed right down because she was with the Sultan of Still. And she came right back and we only walked 4 kilometres in the same amount of time it would have taken us to walk the 10Ks. And she said after, she goes, I'm so glad we didn't do the 10Ks because it just would have been skimming through it. Like we found these rad mushrooms, we took heaps of photos, we spoke about nature, we were deeply connected and involved. And there was a photo of me that she's got on her phone and I'm just, my chest is out and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, I just feel good. And, but it was like, it was amazing. Such a, and so it was an amazing day of just experiencing these chemicals just from the environment that we put ourselves in. Yeah,
fantastic. One of them is nature. And so nature is shown to release oxytocin and serotonin. So out of those big 4, so that bonding and that feeling connected. And it's funny, we've spoken about the book on this show. I've got it holding up my iPad here, The 8 Master Lessons of Nature. I keep thinking now though in my head, this is how my head works. Do you ever used to watch the wrestling, like the WWF?
Yeah.
I'm like, is this follow-up book going to be The 8 Master Lessons of the Nature Boy Ric Flair?
Woo!
Woo! Anyway, that's the way my brain works. Anyway, nature, so oxytocin and serotonin.
Well, it's amazing, that those 2 neurotransmitters are involved, because I said to Em as we were going through, I'm like, I've never had anyone that I've been able to walk with, and I just love that I can do this with you. And she goes, I've never had I've got friends I can do it with, but I've never had a boyfriend or a partner I can do this with. So yeah, it's great to be doing that with you. So those chemicals were coming out in the words that we were using.
Fantastic. I love it. And that makes complete sense then, doesn't it? So nature, so go for a hike, go and soak up nature's energy and start to feel more connected and improve your well-being. So get out.
But go slowly through it and touch the leaves. Like there's, mate. And we're looking at the different ferns, like it's a rainforest, and our minds were blown that we're in a rainforest in Victoria. 2 types of rainforest, by the way, cold climate and warm climate. And we're just looking at the ferns and we're like, and this is hitching a ride with that, and this is dying, but none of it was beautiful. It was all beautiful. Even the rotting fern palm fronds were, it was all just, there was no judgment in there. It's just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's even beautiful as well. Like I'd read about it before, but it was even in that the book, The Master Lessons of Nature, how even underground through the mycelium, these networks of fungi under the earth, like all of these plants are communicating with each other and sending each other nutrients. And some of the like that huge big tree that you just showed me the picture of, you know, if it's really healthy and doing well, it'll send nutrients to some of the trees or plants that aren't doing that well. And I'm like, that's just incredible. Like.
Giving.
It's a community.
But even when it knows it's dying, it'll discharge all of its nutrients to everything around it before it topples over.
Yeah, that's
stunning creature.
That is just that's really beautiful.
It was very humbling being in the presence of these things. Like it was, you know, which is great to get rid of the ego, because the ego loves some of these chemicals as well that we spoke about in last episode.
Yeah. Was there any information, like a plaque on that particular tree? Because I've sometimes gone walks and I've loved to see how old some trees are. Because some of those trees are hundreds and hundreds of years old, and I'm just like, wow, this tree's seen a lot. Been around.
No, there was the one that I stuck my chest out as. That was the dinosaur tree.
The dinosaur tree.
So it was there when the dinosaurs. No, Australia used to be connected. You could walk from Cape York, the top of Queensland, down to Antarctica.
Right.
You could walk from Cape York to Antarctica.
It'd take a while, wouldn't it?
It would take a while, yeah. And the wheel wasn't invented then. So
there was at some point it was like all the continents were together and there was one landmass, and it has a name. I think it's like Pangea. I can't remember, but there was just one landmass before everything started sort of separating into the continents that we know now. But we're talking a very, very long, Pangea, I believe it's called. So there it is.
Anyway, so it was super informative, and there was, it was just, although 75 meters tall, this immense tree is only 2/3 the size of the largest recorded mountain ash, but it still stands as one of Victoria's oldest trees.
Wow.
It was just, it was stunning. Get down there. I can't recommend it enough.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that's one of them, getting out in nature. You know, we've become city slickers to an extent. Get out with it. That's what you do when you're out there. You do a little bit of nature boy Ric Flair. Yeah. Okay, next one's exercise. Really, really obvious one. Exercise.
Can I guess them? Because I haven't read these, so I want to try and guess them.
You've guessed nature straight away.
Yeah,
so.
I would have guessed exercise.
Okay. So let me just we'll touch on exercise quickly before you try and guess the next one.
Yeah, sure.
So exercise can stimulate all of those famous four: serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and oxytocin.
Did you say exercise then or sexercise?
Oh, sexercise. I said exercise, but sex is a form of exercise. Depending on how you do it, depending on who's on top, who's doing the work.
Starfish.
Get the body moving and you'll be swimming in these feel-good chemicals. Long-term cardio produces a lot of serotonin. Dopamine spikes during exercise, but then it does return back to normal afterwards. And everyone knows that runner's high, which is endorphins. We're having endorphins, opiates released into the system, which gives that feel-good feeling. I don't think I've ever run far enough to get that yet.
I used to represent the army for running, so I used to love running, and it was just amazing. The feeling you'd experience afterwards was on that high. It was that natural high. And I've had clients that use the gym as a coping mechanism. They go into the gym because they're not smashing chocolate or they're not drinking or whatever. But they've got an unhealthy relationship with going to the gym.
Yeah. And this is like we've spoken about, like there's nothing is good nor bad, but our relationship to it determines that. So
sex addicts.
Yep.
Yeah. It's as soon as it goes past that healthy point, then it becomes obviously unhealthy.
It becomes dysfunctional. It does. All right, Nick, choose the next one. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, well, I was cranking James Brown on the way here, and I feel good.
Are you? Have you looked at the list or not? Are you?
No, I'm going with the music. I'm pretending I'm on what was that game show?
Perfect Match.
Right? No, no, where you got to reveal the list of things.
Family Feud.
Family Feud. I'm going with music, Larry Emder.
I'm Rob
You
Ruff.
look like Larry.
I'm going back to Rob Ruff. I look like Larry Emder.
Larry
Do not look like Larry Emder.
You look like Larry.
He's more tan than I am. And he's older. He's older than me, but he looks younger than me.
Music is my next.
Music is absolutely on the list. Oxytocin and dopamine. Music can help raise our vibration. Musical pleasure involves the brain's reward system, and dopamine is a key neurotransmitter within these structures. So definitely music that we love does help us start to bathe in these transmitters. And I guess that music will be different for everyone. A certain type of music for one person, it won't. For another person, it will, depending on our association to that music.
Our tastes. Have you read about the research done with music and plants? And they put on classical music for these plants, and they put on death metal for these plants, and the death metal plants didn't grow as well as the.
I've read that this is probably I haven't. That sounds like a bit of an expansion on the water one, Dr. Emoto. So if you're listening, go to YouTube, Dr. Emoto water experiment, and they must have done the same thing.
The
water molecule,
the structure. Yeah.
So there's a crystal. The molecule of water is kind of like a crystal, and you can
like a snowflake.
It's like it looks like a snowflake kind of thing. And so he would play different music for it, and then freeze it, and then take a picture of the water molecule, and you should see the differences. And they even just put the words love and the word hate next to these two water molecules, and one looked like this just beautiful, like something sacred geometry, kind of beautiful crystal. The other one was all dark and messed up, and it was barely a shape. I really encourage people to look it up. And this is the same thing with plants. That a lot of gardeners, I'm not much of a green thumb myself, but have spoken about the way they speak to their crops and that kind of thing, and people go, "You're fucking crazy." But that our intention has an effect on matter.
What's his name? Dr. what?
Emoto.
Emoto. I-M-O-T-O.
Yeah. I can't remember.
E-M-O-T-O.
Yeah.
He's done a rice experiment. He's done water crystals. Yep. So on that, humans are 70% water.
Yeah.
I believe. So if I speak to Ryan with love, my words, my energy, my everything is impacting on the water within him, of which he's 70% made up of. So
exactly.
Yeah. We really do need to be mindful of the words we use with people.
Yeah, and also the words we use to ourselves. Because, like, if you imagine, we've got the love and the hate, and when you watched it on YouTube, you'll see the water crystals. And imagine if I'm telling myself I hate myself all day versus I love myself all day, then like you said, we're made up of mostly water, and of course, it's going to have an effect on us.
If you're running that internal dialogue, it's going to a bit, and then you're walking around with the expectation that I should be happy, I should be feeling good. But that's unconscious, but subconsciously you're like, I'm shit, I'm so high, I'm the worst ever, I'm such a dickhead. You're just going to compound it and create it even, not good, man. Okay, that's cool. I'm going to.
What's your next guess?
Obvious one would be food, because
yes,
because I had an amazing meal with Em the other night for our anniversary, and we had it contributed to both of us feeling very much in love.
And once again, food is wonderful. Food's something we obviously have to eat all the time, and sometimes our relationship with food can get dysfunctional. So there's certain types of foods which are actually more beneficial long term for building these things. Because, like I said, the tub of ice cream will give me a short little hit of dopamine, but long term it's not great for me. So if we think about, we've got a little bit of a list here of different foods that can help. folic acid, vitamin B6, magnesium, and zinc, tyrosine. So we're talking about foods like almonds, avocados, pumpkins, sesame seeds. For oxytocin, dark chocolate. So not the chocolate which is full of sugar. A really nice dark chocolate will help with oxytocin. Spicy foods for endorphins, or even endorphins, just any comfort food as well that you enjoy. Normally, that happens depending on our association when we're younger. You know, my mum used to make.
My association with food changed. I used to love chocolate, and now I don't have a sweet tooth whatsoever. So, yeah, I don't have what I was as a child is much different to what I am as an adult.
Yeah, but also the chocolate we eat as a child is generally milk chocolate, which is kind of 70% sugar.
It was all sugar. It was cake. It was
Yeah.
Donuts. I don't eat any of that now.
So, yeah, well, that's great, and that's a testament that Here you go.
Do you know what contributed to it? I think.
What's that?
I got caught stealing a pack of peanut M&Ms once.
Did you?
Yeah. And I don't know
from a corner shop or something.
Yeah. So I don't know if that changed my path or whatever, because I was like, sugar, bad, it's trouble. That's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, possibly. And then when you do stop, then your taste buds start to change. I think we've spoken about this on a podcast before. I think in 4 weeks, your taste buds can literally change. And that's why, when I was younger, like in my early 20s, and I had a coffee, I'd have like 2 sugars in it. But if you gave me a coffee with half a sugar now, I'd be like, oh, what the hell is this? It's so sweet, because our taste buds are constantly changing. So when we talk about food, just think whole foods. Yeah, just think whole foods. Something as close as we can get to nature.
Unprocessed as possible.
So food's definitely on there. Food can definitely help us. And yeah, if you're going to get chocolate, get the good dark stuff. All right, Nico, what's your next guess?
I'm just thinking, when do I feel my best? And I actually did a blog on this myself, I think. Meditation, I feel great. Is that on the list, Ryan?
Meditation is on the list. Survey says...
Yes. Survey says ding.
Yes. Deep rhythmic breathing, which is often a part of meditation, stimulates oxytocin, and serotonin and mindfulness tend to go hand in hand as well. And that's one of the things we're doing when we're meditating. We're trying to become mindful of what's going on. So yes, definitely meditation. Also endorphins have been shown to be released during meditation. So meditation is a big one.
Connected with meditation and the breathing cycle, I would next go with sleep.
Yes, sleep is on there. It's directly above it.
Hang. Lost count. How many are we up to?
I don't know, but we'll keep going. There's still a few to go.
The pressure's on now. I'm starting to feel nervous.
I know. So sleep is getting proper sleep is very good for our serotonin levels. Serotonin and sleep are linked because serotonin is actually a precursor for melatonin, and melatonin is our levels what help us sleep. And so, advice here is, turning off devices an hour before you go to bed.
Preparing yourself for sleep.
A sleep routine. Yeah. Because see what happened when we evolved without all these artificial lights. And so as the sun went down, our melatonin levels would start to creep up, and then creep up to a point where we just, we went off to sleep. And then in the morning when the sun comes up, all of a sudden that actually produces cortisol, is actually what wakes us up. This is a good use of cortisol. Wakes us up. But now we've got all this artificial light. We've got laptops, we've got phones, we've got TVs. So we're being bombarded with light, which is suppressing our melatonin levels, and a lot of people are having trouble sleeping. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle, because then if I have shitty sleep, my serotonin is affected, which means I have shitty sleep again. And, we get caught in this roundabout. So yeah, having a sleep routine where we turn screens off. A lot of us are deficient in magnesium, taking an Epsom salt bath or that kind of thing.
I take magnesium tablets before sleep.
Do you? Yep. Fantastic. Yep. Magnesium is very relaxing. And like I said, most of us are deficient in that particular mineral.
I had a friend who was struggling with sleep, and he got those blackout curtains. Mm-hmm. And then he got instead of having his phone in his room and an alarm clock and all that stuff, he got one of those lamps that is like sunlight. and it can't. It when he wants to wake up, the lamp slowly starts to get brighter and brighter.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And he said his sleep quality improved dramatically.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I might even look into that, because for people who do like to get up early when it's still dark, it's something like that's fantastic. I've heard people as well who have like their blackout curtains are set on a timer, and they'll automatically start coming up and letting the sunlight in, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, I like that, because I find myself as even getting up with the alarm going off and it's still dark. That is a bit tough as well, because it's still, and the room here I've got's fantastic. It is so dark, like it's literally pitch black, which is great.
But you know how I'm the Segway king?
Yeah.
Sunlight is my next one.
You fucking read this. I'm telling you, mate. Survey says sunlight is on the list. Now,
I'm at the end here, so my next one, I'm probably not going to get it. So.
Well, as we talk about sunlight, it might come to you, right? It might come to you.
Okay, all right.
So sunlight. So one thing, especially in Australia, has had in the past a high incidence of skin cancer. Okay, because of that, there's a massive pushback. The slip slop slap campaign. For those who aren't in Australia, the slip slop slap campaign means put sunscreen on your body all the bloody time, every time you go outside, or you're going to get skin cancer.
Basically, become like a vampire who's become a day walker by lathering himself in sunscreen.
Yeah, and most sunscreen, the chemicals in those are known to be carcinogenic as well, which is I find bloody hilarious. So. Sunlight, and we're not talking going out and just getting burnt to a crisp every day, but sunlight is very, very good for you. Not only does it give you hits of serotonin and oxytocin, it gives you vitamin D3. It is the best way that we absorb vitamin D3, and a massive amount, up to 80%, they say, of people in Australia are deficient in vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is also
weird.
It's so weird. I know. It's so weird. And so it's like you said, we've become these vampires who are like, I've got to protect myself from the sun, and we're missing out on so much of this good stuff that we need by being overprotective of the sun. So getting a healthy amount, and then if you're worried about it, a healthy amount either in the morning or at night when the sun isn't as harsh, but we need to start to bathe in some sunlight.
Don't even look at how hot it is. Look at the UV, because the UV is what actually gets to us. So, being amazing golfers as you and I are, we're outside in all sorts of weather, and I don't know how many times I've come home burnt on a really overcast day, and it's just simply because of the UV factor. Because down in Australia, we've got this lovely hole in the ozone layer above us. So
no buffer there.
No buffer. And for our friends in the UK, what we're talking about is this big orange gaseous star in the sky. It's called the sun. And it emits all these really nice things that our bodies need and the plants need and everything. If you get on an airplane and get through the cloud above your country, you may see this thing that we call the sun.
And that's what when I was in London back in 2013, a while ago now, I was there at a lucky time when it was literally, my friend had lived in London for a long time. He goes, mate, this is the best stretch of weather we've had in the 10 years I've been here. And you should have seen everybody out in Hyde Park, just shirts off, soaking up the sun. Everyone's as happy as hell. It was, really, really interesting.
And then there's sunburnt for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I lived there for 2.5 years in early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I was living I lived mainly along the south coast, and I was in Bournemouth, and the newspaper was like, Britain's biggest heat wave in over 100 years. And I think it was like 32 degrees for 3 days straight. And all the pubs were out. And the pub that night, it was like, oh, can I have a beer and some water? And they were just pink, like they were just beetroot red. It was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and I'm sure, did you experience in the winter that kind of more depressed vibe and everything, and short days, like people going to work and it's dark, and coming home and it's dark.
In the Nordic countries, it's in the UK and places where there is low levels of sunlight, it's depression, weather depression. I can't remember the name of it.
Seasonal affective disorder.
That's the one. Yeah, is very prevalent.
Yeah, so it's like, but in Australia, we've kind of gone the other way, and we've become so protective of the sun because of this skin cancer thing. And it's like, once again, we just need to find some balance.
Response.
Exactly.
Fear response, wasn't it?
Exactly. So so sunlight is super, super important. And after you get some sunlight, also, I believe, don't shower for at least an hour. Otherwise, you won't absorb the vitamin D3 as much as you would like.
Wash the chemicals off.
Yes. Okay. Nico.
All right. So what have we got? Run through the list.
We've done exercise, food, sunlight, nature, music, sleep, meditation. There's 3 to go. One of them we've kind of talked about, but not quite.
I'm clutching at straws here, so I'm just taking a poo.
It's survey
but
says,
a good one. Like survey a good one.
Says, "Bow."
I was
I reckon that would though. I
felt like Steve Stricker, in the PGA event when he was standing over the putt to shoot 59. I was all nerves and everything.
Getting the yips.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is learning something new. Okay, so challenging ourselves.
You could have given me a clue.
Oh no, learning. Challenging ourselves with a new skill or endeavor can help regulate our dopamine. Okay, this can involve learning a new instrument, a new language, any type of new skill. You've heard me on the podcast.
Self-regulation.
What is this?
Management, self-regulation.
Exactly.
Intelligence.
Because what happens, we get as we get older, we get very rigid. Especially when we hit around the age of 30. Not in that way, Nick. But that's a clue. That's a clue for one of the other ones on the list. So we keep we're in our patterns. We get so ingrained in our patterns that we just keep doing the same shit over and over again, and we don't challenge ourselves to learn something new. We've spoken about in the podcast before. I'm learning Muay Thai at the minute, and I actually was chatting to my master Dowd, and I said, look, he said, when you get back to Australia, you'll be ready to fight. You can have a fight. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, mate. I said I'm really enjoying learning a new skill. Like it's fantastic, And this can be anything. Like it says, a new language, a musical instrument. Like I never learned an instrument. I actually am interested in learning how to sing. At some point, and so that might be next on my list. But it's this.
Maybe get some lessons off Shane.
Can he sing?
No.
Why would I get lessons off Shane then?
I don't know. He likes it. We're playing music in the background on Spotify on the TV here, and he's just sitting right up there doing some work, and he just always will start singing. I'm like, mate, they're doing a great job. You don't need to add. You're going to give them a complex. You're going to think that they're not doing well enough. But
you're going to give Shane a complex.
I hope so.
So learning something new. So if you're listening and you feel like you haven't learned something new, or you're like, oh, I wish I had learned to play the guitar. Oh, I wish I had learned to do this, but now I'm 40 years old and it's too late. Bullshit. It's not too late. If you're 70 years old, it's not too late. We can always learn something new, and it's so good for our brain health to learn something new. You want to think about one of the things they talk about, obviously Alzheimer's and dementia being a big issue for older people right now. One of the great things to ward off that is by continually learning and using your brain, because if you don't use it, you lose it. The brain's a muscle like our biceps.
Well, what actually happens when we learn a musical instrument, we're creating hundreds of thousands of neurological pathways. So the average person who stays in their comfort zone and doesn't really get out there and learn anything will, for the sake of this, say have 5 billion pathways. but a musician will have 9 billion pathways. So when a brain disease comes along and attacks the brain, it's got a far
an easier
greater
target.
well, no, it's got a defense mechanism where it's got billions more pathways. So the amnesia and dementia and everything won't be as severe in people with more neurological pathways because they've got a healthier brain. It's got many more pathways. So and it's like I'm a drummer. I play the drums as a hobby. So I'm constantly trying to learn a new beat or develop limb independence. You try being a drummer and you've got to split your body into quarters, and this has to be doing something different to this, and that's doing something different to that. And you can feel your mind stretching and hurting. It's like this growing pain inside your head. You're like, but then all of a sudden you nail it and you're like, oh, and it's like,
and what's that feeling? It's it's that we're talking about.
Totally, and it's the protein shooting down that new neurological pathway that you've just created, and then all of a sudden you're in the groove, and you're like, and you're like, and it's like I achieved it. It's
it feels good, yeah.
It does.
I had it the other day. We started sparring, me and Dowden, and it's a whole teaching of not like flinching or turning away, which is really hard when someone's trying to kick you or punch you in the head. It's really,
and especially after you've kicked him in the nuts.
Yeah, that's right. That was my story from last week that I didn't record. Kicking my teacher in the nuts, and it's like, yeah, it was funny because what he'd do, because he could throw fakes and everything, and if he threw a first fake, I could just block and not flinch, and then he throws second and I'd be right. But the third one, my brain, it's just all new information, so I couldn't help but turn away or that kind of thing. But then this week I finally got it and I didn't flinch. I ended up, being able to get him back, and then like the same feeling with the drums. You're like, fuck yeah, how good's this? I thought I couldn't do this 2 weeks ago, now I can do it. And this is what we do as human beings. And guys, we're bloody stubborn and we just keep doing the same shit over and over again. So if you ever have that thought, I wish I had learned this when I was younger, fucking do it now. Like, don't just, because you'll be saying the same thing in 10 years. Wish I did that when I was younger, when you could have spent that 10 years doing it.
It's amazing how many people you bump into and like, young people especially. I wish I had started an apprenticeship when I was 16 or 17. I'd be qualified by now. I'm like, fucking start it now then.
Yeah.
So the version of you in 4 years doesn't have the capacity to say, I wish I'd have started, when I was 21. Just get into it and do it. I think
doing stuff.
And I'm just thinking about my hobbies and playing golf as well. Golf is not a game of perfect, so always trying to improve and develop on golf as well. So that's a healthy hobby. Drumming, gardening is a healthy hobby. It's all learning. It's all being present. It's all being very mindful. They're very meditative activities.
And the thing is now with the online world that we live in, you can literally learn anything that you want at the touch of your keyboard. You can jump on somewhere, like Udemy or one of these courses, and there's literally courses on like how to raise goats in a certain climate. Like you can literally niche down that you'll find someone in the world who's interested in what you are, and you can learn about it. And which is absolutely beautiful. I did this course on critical thinking. And it cost me like $20. And this guy's like, I was a professor at one of the top universities in America for like 25 years and taught critical thinking. And I was able to learn from his information for like $20 online. It's like, don't put off doing this stuff.
No, man. I've always had an interest in what to do with 3 years worth of toenail clippings. And I was there for ages, and I just jumped on YouTube, and there was this dude.
Did you make a sculpture?
This dude in the Ukraine, and he just taught us how to boil them down, and
no. gonna be sick. I'm dead set gonna be sick. I always imagined Seinfeld references when we're talking, but I remember when Kramer made the Fusilli Jerry, he made a little thing of Jerry out of Fusilli pasta, and I was just imagining you making a sculpture of yourself or me out of your toenail clipping. Toenail Ryan. Get it for me birthday or something. I'm like, oh, thanks.
No, I'll start sticking pins in it. It's like a voodoo doll.
Oh no! All right, we've got two more.
Well, I'm gonna go with doing a healthy hobby. Would that be on the list?
Look, I think that might go covered under learning something new.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so one of them I don't think you're going to get. It's really basic and something to help with overwhelm for people.
Oh,
the other,
yeah.
Yep.
Give me some clues. Give me some that helps with overwhelm.
Helps
compartmentalizing.
Yeah, it's a way of doing this, but you're doing an activity.
To-do list.
Yes, list making. Okay.
Oh, see that? I had to be right then. I had to be perfect. I had to be right.
Look at the relief.
That was the three amigos coming out there.
Look at the relief. They just pop their head up and back down.
Oh, I had to be right.
So list making actually releases dopamine in our brain. A lot of people struggle with overwhelm because we have all these ideas of things that we need to do in our head, and because we think it's too much for us to handle in whatever time we have, we go into overwhelm, and overwhelm prevents us more from doing the things that we need to do or fulfilling our obligations. So something as simple,
like the truth. Mm-hmm. You can't handle the truth. Sorry, that was there. I had to take it. Had to take it, Ryan. It was there.
So simply, I used to do this, when we had the physical center, and there was, a lot of shit for me to do every morning. But I'll do it every night, actually, the night before for the next day, and just write down the list and prioritize each one. And then I knew exactly what I had to do. And it's funny because when you write it down and it's out of your head, you can see that it's actually way less overwhelming than you thought it was. What are you showing us there? For everyone not watching on YouTube, Nick is showing me on his phone home to-do list, work to-do list,
defender to-do list.
So is that the car?
Yeah, it's my truck.
There you go. So you've got a little, system on your phone going on. So all it does is you're just dumping this stuff out of our brain into our phone or onto a bit of paper. And then what happens, as soon as I say, well, hey, my number one priority today was to, blah, 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 get a gym workout in, and I've done it, bang, when you tick that off, dopamine in the brain. Yeah? And we start to feel accomplished as a human being instead of being overwhelmed and then not accomplishing it and then beating ourselves up. So it's like we're doing a positive cycle or a negative cycle here. So list making is so simple, but it's such a simple thing that we can do. I think Jim Rohn says whatever's easy to do is also easy not to do. So list making probably falls in that category.
Yes. What it also does, though, is I love expressions that are very literal. So when you say to someone, how are you feeling? Yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm on top of things. That means they've prioritized themselves and they're in a position where they are then choosing how they manage what they have to do. Where you say, how are you feeling? To someone like, I feel shit. I just feel like everything's on top of me. It's like they're not in the driver's seat. They're not managing. And another one of those literal expressions is, I've got to get it out of my system. And it's so true. I've been thinking of something, someone said something last week or last month, and it's still bugging me, and I've just got to get out of my system. That's why journaling is so good, because it literally removes it from your system. And once it's out of it, the system is free to flow again. It blocks the chakras up, it blocks the energy channels up.
And and another one on journaling, I encourage people, if it's something that you do or you're looking into, is to be really honest and irrational, and especially if we're dealing with someone you're angry at. I always tell them, don't try and be rationally write out what's going on, write out what you're actually feeling. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it's like if I write out like I want to fucking punch that cunt in the face and I want to blah blah blah. Like, you know, be real with yourself, because if that's what's happening in your system, you know, and you want to get it out of your system like you were talking about, then write that down. Like, what would I do to this person if there were no consequences? That's something I encourage people to do when we're working with anger, because so many men that this is actually a good topic for another podcast, is anger. We as a society have suppressed and repressed anger to such a point that it is just stewing in people's systems, especially men, and we don't know what to do with it. But one thing I'll get men to do is to say, if there was no consequences, what would you do? It's like, oh, I don't want to say it. It's like, okay, it's going to stay in there if you don't want to say it. It's like, you know, I want to rip their fucking head off. It's like, good, be real. You're not going to do it. But if that's what you're feeling, get that out of your system.
Remember when I rang you and I was a spud when Em and I first started dating, and I was a complete emotional retard. I had no access to my functions, and
your prefrontal cortex was a no-go zone.
And I was just I couldn't speak, and I was so triggered, so heightened all the time. I just did brain dump after brain dump after brain dump, and just got it all out of my system. I knew that I couldn't control what was going on, and I was triggered on a deeper level because it took me back to where I was, you know, before I did all my work. I'm like, this feels very similar. So I had this association. I'm like, have I regressed? Have I reverted back to there? Am I going to not be able to leave my house? And blah, blah, blah. So I just kept writing and writing and writing. And then I wouldn't go back over it until a few days later when I was slightly back to being present. And I'd read it with my logical mind, and I just pissed myself laughing. And I'm like, oh, the headspace that I was in. And even talking to you, I knew I could observe myself being so highly rational, but you're just not capable of doing anything about it.
Yeah, it's like I'm in my amygdala, I'm in my emotional body, but then, like you said, you just get like brain dumping. It's like, let that part speak. Let the amygdala speak. Let the fear speak, the anger speak, the sadness speak. Like, let it all have a voice and come out. Because like you said, I love those literal sayings as well. And, you know, people saying, I just need to get this out of my system. It's like, all right, well, take action on getting it out of your system. Otherwise, it's going to stay in there.
Do that.
And then the problem is, if we don't, then we take action based on being in those parts of our brain and body, and then we start to do things that we regret.
Yeah, well, we're not our authentic self. It's our emotions that are talking or acting, and people are interacting with. So, yeah, I think let's do a podcast on anger next. Excellent.
Okay, so that was list making. That's like a really actionable one, just a list. And then just like, because I always used to say at the center, I'd have the list the night before and just prioritize them, like 1, 2, 3 to 8 or whatever. And I'd just be like, if I get 2 done, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. Any more than that's a bonus, you know, because you don't have to get everything on the list done. Just let yourself off the hook.
Start by making the bed in one. Oh, guess what I've been doing with clients? Just a little segue.
What's that?
You know when you step out of sleep into that semi-conscious state, and you're in between waking and sleeping, so you become aware of your awareness and the things around you, but you're not completely back yet.
Yep.
I've been suggesting to clients to play around with this concept of, don't just open your eyes. Make the first thing you do is to consciously open your eyes. So, right, I'm aware that I have eyelids. I'm aware that I have muscles in these eyelids that open and close and contract and expand and fill and drain of energy. And so I'm going to choose to open my eyes. And it's like just an instantly empowering way to start the day, instead of just falling mindlessly into the day. It's like, all right, I'm going to set myself, and I'm going to make a decision. The very first thing I do is going to make a decision.
Yeah, and you're in that state as well. That's the most suggestible state, that theta brainwave at that time. I actually had this idea of an invention because when we're in that theta brainwave, we're the most suggestible, and our brainwaves are obviously fluctuating throughout the day. It was after I borrowed the Muse headset off you, because the Muse headset you obviously wear, and it can measure the brainwaves to a certain extent, and while you're meditating, it'll give you feedback as to how calm the brain is. You know, I had an idea to kind of take that to the next level, where you'd wear it, it'd be like a cool accessory. Like, I don't know if it'd be like a headband or sunglasses that went around. Anyway, it would measure your brainwaves 24/7, but then whenever throughout the day, or whenever your brain dipped into a theta brainwave, it would start suggesting through like an ear pod or something.
You are amazing.
Yeah.
You can do it.
And I was going to call it the Automatic D Hypnotizer.
So we've been playing around with that. We're actually, instead of usually with the Muse headband, we'll just sit clients down and close your eyes and focus on your breath. But we've been using it for active meditations. And Shane got given one by his partner, fiance, soon-to-be wife, for Christmas. And so he's got one at home, and he put it on her while they were driving down the Great Ocean Road, and just to see what her brain would do down there. So it's, we're taken into, slow walking meditations, and more people are juggling, and it's really cool just to see the feedback people get from it.
Yeah, there's a lot of the less with brainwaves, but now there's a lot of wearables coming out, like the Aura Ring and that kind of thing, where we're measuring heart rate variability, which can be a sign of vagal tone, and wearing that 24 hours a day and getting feedback on sleep and all that kind of stuff. And I find all that stuff, pretty interesting.
Yeah, knowledge is power, but too much knowledge can be disempowering. So
exactly. Yeah.
Just gotta be careful. All right, what's the last one?
Okay.
Clue me. Give me a clue.
It's to do with oxytocin.
Touching, hugging.
Nico, survey says yes, that is it. Hugging a loved one. Hugging releases oxytocin. Okay. But almost as good as hugging is, you can even imagine yourself being hugged or cuddled by someone you love, and your brain will start to release oxytocin. So once again, the subconscious mind doesn't know what's real or what's vividly imagined. Obviously, the real thing's better, but even just thinking about being held by a loved one can start to bring those feelings on. We are social creatures, mammals are social creatures. We've evolved that way. And it's no wonder that we get rewarded chemically by touch. Especially the people that we love. I was just
imagining our last hug before you went to Thailand.
Oh, let me think about it. That was a long time ago, Nick.
But it was a warm embrace. It wasn't. I've had to teach you not to man hug by backslapping. It's just hold the heart.
I like a good man hug, though. Get it in there. Now, also for the extra hit. If you can hug for 30 seconds minimum, is the best. That's been tested as to how much it releases. So that's a long hug. Unless you want to maybe let the other person know, otherwise it can get a bit awkward. Imagine like you're catching up with someone for the second time ever, and you go for the hug, and you just don't let go for 35 seconds,
and then you start whispering in their ear. I've read the research on this.
Can you feel the oxytocin? I
can. I'm picturing Kramer doing that now, just going past that point of awkwardness and just riding it.
So next time you hug, your partner or a family member or something, and just give them a hug and then hold it for 30 seconds, and just obviously it's a great. Like I said, we are when we evolved from reptiles to mammals, we started to develop these networks in our brain for social connection, and part of that social connection is touch. If you
spooning at night's so good because you're spooning for longer than 30 seconds.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. And, it's a little bit morbid to talk about, but, a baby, when they're born, they did these tests, they did them in Russia or something. But if you give that baby everything that it needs to live nutritionally wise, but they don't get any physical touch, they will die.
Sounds like Russia.
Yeah, it does. So physical touch is important. I remember we actually spoke about this back when Melbourne were first going into lockdown, and like you at the time, Nick, were living by yourself, and there's obviously a lot of other people, and it's like, we're missing that physical touch. Not allowed outside and getting sunlight. And now they're showing the link between vitamin D3 and the ability to fight off COVID-19, right? It's like, well, let's lock people away from sunlight. I don't want to get into that debate, but I'm just saying, these things are very, very important. So hugging a loved one is important. And if you don't have a significant other, then just a close friend. I've had great hugs with close friends.
So let's go and hug a loved one in nature whilst it's sunny.
First we'll make we'll put on our list. We're going to hug a loved one today. Then we're gonna hug them, and then whilst we're holding that hug, we're going to talk about the new thing that we're learning, the new skill. We're also going to be in a meditative state during the hug. We might fall asleep hugging each other. We're going to have our favorite music playing in the background. So a bit of Tool. We're going to be out in nature. So we're going to be next to some beautiful trees out in in sunlight. And we're going to be just munching on a bit of food whilst we're doing it. And we're going to be jumping up and down because getting exercise.
It sounds like my kind of day.
Yeah, that's all you have to do, everyone. So that's it.
I'd be up for that.
And look, the more that we naturally boost these famous these neurotransmitters, the less that we're going to look for vices, because we're going to feel less deficient in them, because whatever we feel deficient in, it's a natural human instinct to try and fulfill that need the best way that we know how. So here are some new ways to do it that can fill the ways that maybe haven't been so healthy for you up until this point.
But also, Ryan, my esteemed colleague and friend, it's going to shift your focus away from losing weight and away from all these negative things. It's just going to focus on my well-being. The first fundamental in Myndfit is prioritizing you, so you're in the best shape to be there for other people. We break you down into mental, physical, nutritional. Mental, we incorporate spiritual. So, in that list, you're touching on all three of those things significantly. Your mental health, your physical health, your nutritional health, and your wellness is going to increase. Your well-being, your being will be well if you do all of these things. So a natural byproduct of that is, you feel better. When you feel better, you don't want the junk food, you don't want the alcohol, you don't want all the crap. So you're going to lose those extra kilos, the love handles. You're going to feel better when you're putting your old pair of pants on that suddenly fit again. So it's just going to have this really positive ripple effect.
Absolutely. My esteemed colleague and friend, Nick, thank you for that.
I just wanted to go a bit into that space for some reason. Then
I'm not sure that I've ever been called an esteemed colleague, so I felt
me neither. So that's what I bring to the relationship, Ryan.
All right. I hope listeners, you took something out of that. Start to incorporate whatever you can in your day-to-day life. But I think that these famous four are very, very important to our overall well-being, and that's what we want. And I think, like you said, Nick, it creates this positive ripple effect, which makes us more happy. That bloody stupid H word that everyone's looking for. This is how you do it.
This is how you do it.
This is how you do it. All right, let's finish up there. If Shane's singing's worse than that, then I feel sorry for you, Nick.
That's how we do it. It's a Friday night.
It is Friday.
Woo! Nature boy.
All right, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. We will see you all next week. Peace out.
Peace.